in a row for the New York Mets, most recently a sweep of the Boston Red Sox, as we welcome you to the 38th episode of the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, Corne Hogveen. Corne, like I said, 7 wins in a row, a sweep of the Red Sox, back-to-back sweeps of teams that end in Sox, and Mets find themselves in a very, very good position.
First of all, episode number 38 means one of your favorite players' number in Tyler McGill. So it's the Tyler McGill episode.
I guess
But
so,
yeah,
yeah.
obviously, 7 games in a row. The Red Sox are obviously a little bit of different type of sweep than the White Sox were. The White Sox you kind of expect. Yeah, the Red Sox obviously wasn't necessarily a given. We talked about that last week. So kudos to this team battling all the way back again. We're gonna have a nerve-wracking last month, I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think something that was you talk about how different it was between the White Sox and the Red Sox. Um, those last 2 games in particular, the Sox had lots of chances to jump in front of the Mets and take a lead, and maybe those big eighth innings don't happen if the Mets are down. Maybe things are played out a little bit differently. Who knows? But some big double plays, some big strikeouts. Well, I'm sure we'll get into all of that in our series recap. For the Red Sox sake, they didn't really have much of a chance to win game one per se. That was their probably worst played game of the series. Uh, and that was a game started by Luis Severino for the New York Mets, who did Severino things, going 7 innings of 1 run ball, 5 strikeouts, a couple walks in there, just a 1 earned run, like I mentioned. And the Mets behind him got a 4-1 series opening win on Labor Day. Francisco Lindor was just making even more of a case to be the National League MVP. The bottom of the order, and with I don't want to say a surprise DJ Stewart call, because there's been mention that JD Martinez might be leaving the team soon, but DJ Stewart gets called up, get thrown into the fire, gets a big 2-out hit, followed by Luis Torrens, a big 2-out hit, who comes around to score. So the bottom of the order was productive as well, and just a good overall night for the New York Mets. But it all goes back to the man I mentioned at the top, Luis Severino, giving them 7 strong innings.
Yeah, he was tremendous. I was watching that game and I noticed that he was throwing a lot of fastballs, forcing to seam cutters early, um, which was a tremendous pitch. And then later in the game, he went to the slider more and more. So it worked. The fastball worked early on. I think the Red Sox overall in this whole series had a little bit of a difficult time with fastballs up in the zone. Probably we'll mention that again in the Tuesday's game. So it definitely worked. I don't know if that's if that's a common thing with the Red Sox, but so that will probably be in a scouting report that they have some difficulties up in the zone, but definitely worked early on with that fastball. And then from that fastball on, when he faced hitters for second and third time through the order, he went more with his sweeper, which was also pretty good. 7 strong. It's a strong lineup overall. I think especially you see the youth in Sedan Rafaela who struck out maybe like 7 or 8 or maybe even 10 times in this series. Struck out a lot. So it's a youthful lineup. They have some good hitters, but I think the veteran pitchers, or at least Severino is mostly the veteran pitcher, utilized it really well. So good first win. Torrens keeps doing things when he's there. He throws out runners, even if he struggles offensively. I think he shows that he's a very capable backup, not only for this year but for next year too. So kudos to another good pickup from the Mets offense, the Mets front office, I should say. Um, so yeah, great game. Lindor doing Lindor things, and the Mets played some sparkling defense to Alonso with that play. Uh, and a nice double play before that in the fifth with that ball that was foul or not, close to foul, but he stayed with it. So that was great. Uh, Maton again very good. I think the bullpen overall was tremendous. We will probably get back to the bullpen again for the rest of this series. So just everything was working out pretty well for the Mets. Um, they also faced a pretty decent arm, I would say. The Red Sox made a couple of mistakes. I think Tyler O'Neill made a mistake in the outfield, which led to DJ Stewart scoring that run. So overall, we just played a better game. So the better team on Monday won.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you talk about the bullpen and Phil Maton. Obviously, this guy sandwiched in between them was Danny Young, and who got into a little bit of a jam there after getting the first two outs, but uh, found his way out of it. I mean, that was kind of almost a theme for the bullpen in this whole series. But yeah, just a good overall night on Labor Day in New York. A nice crowd of 35,000 at the ballpark. So the Mets, yes, you pulling at me, I was there as well. Um, so a good night overall for the New York Mets on Monday. We're looking to carry that momentum in to the game on Tuesday, started by well, I don't know, I have to say definitely my favorite pitcher in this rotation, Mr. David Peterson. And he continued to do David Peterson things in a 7-2 win over the Boston Red Sox. This was a game. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Wednesday game, but we're focused on the Tuesday game right now. This was a game that was a lot closer than it ended up being. Cutter Crawford pitched well for the Red Sox in this game too, so it was a nice pitcher's battle. And I believe in our last episode, we talked about this game potentially being the best of the three based on the pitching matchups and what the guys can do. And I think that lived up very much to the hype. So David Peterson, like I said, did David Peterson things, going 6 innings of one-run ball, one walk, 11 strikeouts, and 6 hits allowed. Uh, Obviously, Francisco Lindor, number 30 on the year for him with his two-run jack to put the Mets up 2-0 early. The Sox made their way back to a 2-1 game, and then the Mets were just Mark Vientos. I almost said Jesse Winker, but Mark Vientos. That was the next night. Mark Vientos hit a home run to give the Mets a little breathing room, and then in the eighth inning, the Mets just blew the doors off after the Sox once again made a one-run game. So the Mets win 7-2, and like I mentioned at the top, just like in the last game, it all goes back to the guy who started the game, and that was David Peterson with his 11 strikeouts. And you said it in the chat, in our chat. He's pitching himself into a number three role, not for this season, but for next season as well, with just how dominant he's been, and particularly that fastball up in the zone.
Yeah, it's a dominant stretch for David Peterson, and I think early on, I think we are both still aware that his overall numbers are maybe inflated a little bit by the early season walk struggles, not getting deep. But he's now in a stretch where he is getting deep into ball games. He's not walking too many people, and getting a lot of soft outs in my estimation, a lot of ground balls too when he's on. And now he had an outing where he struck out 11. So even if he doesn't strike out the world, um, he induces soft contact. So we always liked David Peterson. We always knew that there's stuff there in David Peterson, but it finally started to sound like that that he put it all together. So yeah, it's great outing for David Peterson on his birthday. Career high 11 strikeouts. That's pretty neat. And I also want to mention Mark Viento's home run against Justin Sladen. Justin Sladen we had for a couple of minutes, probably Rule 5 draft. We drafted, which I liked. He has a decent year for the Red Sox. But then we traded him for Ryan Adams, who I will mention later in the minor league minutes. So I think in the end, not just for this outing, but I think Ryan Adams is a maybe a good piece of the future bullpen for the Mets.
Nice little tease there for the minor league minute coming later. Obviously, we talked about Francisco Lindor making a case for the National League MVP. He was 2 for 4 in this game with 3 RBIs. Pete Alonso hit a home run to kind of just seal the deal. Peterson went 6, so the bullpen had to come in. So 3 innings from Buto, Reed Garrett, and Ryan Stanek, who finished things off. And I like this. I mean, we can relate this to Wednesday's game as well, but the manager knows at this point in the season, if guys don't have it, you got to get them out of there. Buto pitched a nice first inning, but then he came out and struggled, so he made the move quickly. Went to Reed Garrett, who he very much trusts. Reed Garrett did get a big double play to get the inning over with. Um, and then Ryan Stanek, uh, came in when the Mets, pretty much sealed the deal with that game. So they have to use Edwin Diaz. He came in and struck out 2 guys. Uh, I mean, we'll talk more about the manager's bullpen decisions more for the Wednesday game than anything. But that was just kind of the beginning of his flexibility, I guess is maybe the way to put it, with his bullpen. Especially, and you can have that flexibility when you get outings like what Severino and David Pearson were able to give you. And I know that's probably what you were going to say. So I stole your thunder yet again.
Yeah, 100% what I wanted to say. Um, it helps when your bullpen is rested. You can use different arms in different situations on any given day because Severino goes 7. Also, it helps that we had the off day yesterday. Definitely helped with the last game, how Mendoza handled it. I do also think that we have a fairly deep bullpen, which also helped. I think we have a lot of arms that can help you in multiple ways. Buto had a great 7th, walked 2 guys in the 8th. I think that was a little bit of team in this series that when relievers go back out, they struggled a bit. It happened multiple times. So we saw that with Buto too. But then Reed Garrett, kudos to Reed Garrett. We aren't necessarily the biggest Reed Garrett fans on this podcast, but lately he's been very good. Um, he did a great job. I think the only base running he allowed was that very soft ground ball that bounced over him, where Lindor tried to go to second, but then was delayed and couldn't make a play at first. So he made the pitch there, and then he got a big double play. And Garrett is an enthusiastic guy, so I also want to give him some credit because we often don't give, besides the April month, we often don't give Reed Garrett that much credit lately. So he did well, and he's been pitching better lately. So hopefully, maybe the injury, returning from the injury, that hopefully he's back. It's not me necessarily saying that I am overly optimistic about that, but what do I know? So maybe that's the case. I hope that's the case. And then Stanek, who's been a little bit lower in the pecking order right now because of his struggles, who had a good outing too. So good job by the bullpen.
Yeah, Reed Garrett obviously has been a good of late. Still, every time we come to the game, I get a little nervous. It's just call it whatever you want. I guess maybe being there when he blew that lead against the Giants back in May gave me enough trauma to be like, all right, this guy, every time he comes in, I'm a nervous wreck. So, but no, he got the big out, got a big double play, like a lot of these guys did late in that game, or on the next night as well. So, just a good overall win for the New York Mets, who were going to go for a sweep on Wednesday night in a game where maybe the pitching matchup wasn't as much in their favor, with Tyler McGill taking the hill going up against Boston's probably best pitcher, Tanner Houck. And the Mets got on Houck early thanks to a Jesse Winker grand slam. Jesse Winker continues to thrive as a New York Mets. The Mets got out to a 4-0 lead early. Unfortunately, in the third inning, though, the Sox made it a one-run game. They started to get to Tyler McGill. and put up a three spot in the third. So the Mets went to their bullpen early after McGill gave them 4 innings. And the law firm of Alex Young, Huskar Brasaban, Danny Young, Phil Maton, Edwin Diaz, that's a pretty big law firm there, a lot of lawyers. They all shut down the Red Sox from there. Like we mentioned, getting some big double plays when they needed them. The Mets eventually will put a 4 spot up in the eighth inning to give himself the breathing room and would win this game 8-3. And there's a lot of areas we could go to start with this game. Obviously, the McGill start, Jesse Winker's home run in the first inning. I mean, we've gushed about Jesse Winker in our last episode as well, being a tremendous pickup by David Stearns at the trade deadline. But maybe the focus was more on the bullpen, and it goes back to what we talked about, where guys give you 7 innings, your starter goes 6 innings. A lot of guys are rested, and they can have the ability to take a look at Tyler McGill and say, you know what, despite those first 2 innings where he didn't allow a run, the Sox got some good swings on him. They're kind of on his stuff. So once the hits the fan, we got to get him out of there. And then you can just piece it together. And they did exactly that. So, and that goes back to the manager maneuvering his way around that. So, a big tip of the cap to Carlos Mendoza with his bullpen usage in the series finale.
Absolutely, and I think the Mets are aware of what Tyler McGill is right now. Obviously, you're not going to say it in the media that Tyler McGill is what he is. He's a depth arm. He's a guy that that you hope that you can give some quality innings, but still has a quick hook when he's not on, especially when you have the aforementioned rested bullpen. So that clearly helped. The Mets could go to Alex Young, who is the extra arm in the bullpen, which also helped this September. He did well. The Mets got in some trouble, but got that big out yet again and again and again. Like you mentioned, that the Red Sox did definitely have some chances to at least tie or get the lead against us. So um, getting big outs, that's what the bullpen did in this series. The momentum is also a bit on us. The Red Sox obviously wanted to avoid that sweep, so maybe a little bit over anxious at times. But they did well. Maton staggered also a little bit, but eventually got that out that he needed, that one out that he needed. So yeah, if that's the bad Maton outing we get in recent days, you take it if he doesn't break. And then the Red Sox, who kept it close, kudos to Tanner Houck after that grand slam. He kept it at 4. Then their bullpen did well too, uh, until that 8th inning where Kenley Jensen came in. And as we've seen with closers at times, when they come in an unsafe situation to get work, it mostly it's not a great outing. So that happened to Kenley Jensen now too. He wasn't really good, couldn't find the strike zone, and then Rich Hill came in. We both like Rich Hill, but he struggled also a bit. So the Mets pounded on that, get some insurance runs, and get he has an easy inning to get him some work in before the off day, getting ready for the Red Series. So sweep of the Red Sox, 7 in a row, like we mentioned. Great series.
Yeah, those 3 of the 4 runs scored by the Mets in that eighth inning all came on bases loaded walks. So, those are like I said to you, those are my kind of favorite walks. Not, not when the Mets pitchers are walking people like we've experienced a lot this year. No, when the Mets
I still
batters
like
are
his
drawing walks.
better, but yeah, I'll take the walks. It also a little bit depends for me. Obviously, when the offense gets walks, but if it's like a 4 pitch walk where the pitcher just completely off, then for me it's still a bit, well, I'll take it, but our team didn't necessarily earn it. But we had some walks where it was 3-2. I think that Taylor walk on that 3-2 pitch was a um, inducing pitch where you could swing out against Kenley Jensen with that cutter up and away a bit. He held the swing, so That was an earned walk. I can't remember the other two how they eventually came on. I always do lose a little bit of concentration when there's a lot of walks involved.
Fair enough, fair enough. But someone who's not really walking a ton of guys out of the bullpen for the Mets' sake is Mr. Danny Young, and we have to give him his flowers. We have to jump on this topic here because obviously there are some exceptions to the rule. You look at a guy like Edwin Diaz, uh, Kenley Jansen back in the day, Emmanuel Clase right now, high paid reliever arms. But most of the time, you don't need to give, at least in my mind, you don't need to give relievers a lot of money like that. And I know you've heard this spiel before. We were talking about it uh, on Wednesday night as well. But Danny Young is Exhibit A on why you don't need to pay relievers a lot of money. The Mets found Danny Young on a minor league deal. He's come in and pitched tremendously. He's going to probably be in the bullpen next year, I would assume, and he's still going to be making that low end salary and whatnot. So, I mean, do you really want to pay a guy like the Cubs paid Hector Neris almost $10 million to eventually just DFA him? I know relievers are very much a year to year, position in baseball, but you can find guys that aren't going to command a big salary. And like I said, there are exceptions to the rules, like Edwin Diaz and Emmanuel Clase, who are kind of the unicorns almost. And I mentioned Kenley Jansen back in the day. Um, but you don't need to spend, you know, $8 million on a reliever or $10 million on a reliever when there are guys that are just like Danny Young out in the market that are willing to take minor league deals with a chance to come into camp and crack a roster spot. So I mean, and so tip of the cap to Danny Young, tip of the cap to David Stearns for finding him. And it's just a reminder that, you know, you don't need to spend big when it comes to relief pitching.
I just a thought, but I think you don't like when I think you don't think that you need to spend big on relief pitching because you said it like four times in that thing alone.
Trying to make
But
my point. Get it across.
no, I think we said before this year, probably in one of our first podcasts, that we liked how Stearns has built bullpens. He did that in the Brewers. I think it's always good. I do think it's good to have a good closer. Obviously, you hope that shutdown closer comes from your organization, but if that doesn't work, I don't mind paying a little bit more for a good closer, which the Mets did with Edwin Diaz. Unfortunately, I don't think that after the contract, obviously, it didn't necessarily work that out that well, but still, I think having Diaz at the back end does help the other arms that we have. But I think the rest can be built um, without spending much, like you mentioned. And I always felt that I think even if you now look at what they brought in and during the off season, they brought in Diekman, they brought in Olavino, but those weren't handcuff deals. Um, I think Olavino was like 7 million, 4 million, or something like that. Even if he doesn't perform well, it's not like the end of the world. So you still take it. Just you take your chance with a guy who's been good for years. And if it doesn't work out, oh well, it doesn't work out. We could find somebody else. And that's exactly what David Stearns did in Milwaukee and now does with the Mets. And Danny Young, I hope finally he can, because when Danny Young has been in the majors, I know it were small sample sizes before the Mets, he has pitched well in the majors. So now I hope finally he gets um, a real shot to be a steady bullpen arm. And I definitely think he's part of our bullpen next year. And like you mentioned, cheap. But not only Danny Young, Alex Young has been a waiver claim who has been pitching well. I think the relievers that David Stearns got, Phil Maton, even Stanek and Brasaban, I think I mentioned this last week too. So what they gave up wasn't necessarily big. So um, even you hope that they work out, but it's a gamble you're always going to take. I'm not going to second guess those moves. You know, I love the Brotherbar move. We still have him many as options. Um, so, but still, overall, I think Stearns finds a way to build good bullpens. And he's going to continue to do that without spending a lot on a setup man or a seventh inning guy, I think, or at least not giving them, you know, 2 year deals or something like that.
Yeah, and I want to make the point too. Like, I'm not saying like I'm not advocating for like, all right, it's Edwin Diaz, and then all the rest of the guys are just you know guys who took minor league deals are trying to fight for a spot. My point is like the guy like unique guys that with experience, like the Phil Maton next year, his option was it like 6-7 million bucks. They're going to pick that up, and I'm definitely in favor of that. What I'm saying is like the guys that are further down, maybe in the pecking order or whatnot. They don't need to be these. You don't need to go out and give them contract like major league contracts like or you know what I'm saying. Like you don't need to give them like that much guaranteed money, I guess, because like I mean, I don't want to. I guess Ottavino maybe is the example. Maybe it's not a good example because you mentioned Ottavino's not making a lot of money, but 4 million bucks. But he's not like in the higher leverage role that we thought he was going to be. Or, So I guess the point I'm making is maybe the sixth, seventh, eighth guy, in your bullpen could be someone you found that other teams undervalued and you get at a bargain, something like
Oh,
that.
sure.
Like exactly what Danny Young was or has been this year.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. I don't. I also didn't mention that. I think how the Stearns handled the bullpen, um, but Ottavino, I think Stearns how he handled the bullpen in the off season shows how he's going to handle. He's not going to overpay necessarily for setup guys. I think 4 million for Adam Ottavino for what he did in years prior um, is still a steal. If it worked out or not, yeah, people players underperform. We can't tell in March how a player will perform. And Adam Ottavino has been a very, very good reliever over his career. Unfortunately, not this year. Well, 4 million. 4 million for Steve Cohen and the payroll the Mets have is peanuts. It's not gonna handcuff them at all, and it's not gonna be a big thing. If I think Ottavino, by the way, is been pretty decent in his role lately.
Oh yeah.
So I would definitely trust him when he comes in right now. Um, but point is, he was seen as our setup guy. It just didn't work out. That happens. That happens with other players. That also happens with big contracts. But this is just a 1 year deal, and you can just move on next year. And we found some gems during this year. We found some pieces that will be part of our bullpen. We have mentioned that on the chat. That's probably a nice off-season thing, but we have said that in earlier podcasts as well. But we have things set up for next year without necessarily needing a big setup man right now. And that's all you want. Also helps. Something we lacked in recent years, I would say, is getting arms from your own organization. That's going to help a bit. We haven't seen a good reliever like, for example, Daniel Nunez come up and be good. Even Reed Garrett, who's a waiver claim a couple of years ago, but I see him a little bit of our own organization type guy. He pitched some big innings for us, and he's most likely at some role part of your organization. Russell, now I'm going there. So point is, next year we have our bullpen pretty set as stone, and that's with some great finds, David Stern. So I don't think we necessarily need to spend big on relief pitchers next year, like we didn't on this year. I think Stearns is going to wait out the market and see what's left, and don't pay a lot, just like Alvino's deal.
Yeah. Like I said, Ottavino probably wasn't the best example to give based on like the $4 million salary, but it was just that kind of like a guy like if you don't need to pay like veteran guys a lot of money when you could find another Danny Young likely in free agency. Because what we talked about last episode, where starters are less likely to take minor league deals. Relievers are way more likely to take minor league deals. So I would just, you can load up on minor league deal arms and throw it against the wall, and some are bound to stick. I guess that's the philosophy, or maybe or what I'm trying to get at here, and maybe you disagree or something like that. But I guess that's what I was probably trying to get more at.
Yeah, I don't think for full bullpen that works,
No, no,
but
no, no, definitely not. But
I think every team likes to find those gems in their minor league deals. Um, so it's not, and obviously that you need depth. We all know that, and I think every single year we see a lot of relievers coming to camp on minor league deals. And I do have to add that I think what David Stearns picks are mostly pretty decent minor league gambles. I think that's a difference between maybe an organization that picked a guy that's getting older. Danny Young is not that young, and Danny Young is not that young. That's fun. But we also see, for example, guys like Jose Valverde or Kyle Farnsworth, guys who have been pretty good relievers, been on the decline, and then get minor league deals. I think what Stearns does is just move on from that um, and go with upside. And Danny Young was a guy, like I mentioned, who has been good for years in the minor leagues, good when he had a chance in the major leagues, and now finally gets a real shot to be a big part of a bullpen for the majority of the season. So, but yeah, I think when Danny Young signed, I think we both really liked that move because of that reason.
yeah. Well, I think a nice discussion on relievers. We maybe jumped the gun on that a bit, because that's probably, like you said, probably get more into that into the off season and whatnot. Because there are more important things to focus on right now when it comes to the New York Mets, and that's a chase for a wild card spot. And with a little help from our friends last night in Colorado and San Francisco and Detroit, the Mets gained ground on all three teams in front of them, and now the Mets are tied with the Atlanta Braves for that third and final wild card spot. 2.5 back of Arizona, 3 back of the Padres. So it's it's funny how about a little over a week ago, the walk off home run, or not the walk off home run, but the grand slam Corbin Carroll hit put the Mets back 4.5 against against the Braves. And a week later, the New York Mets are now tied with the Atlanta Braves for the third and final wild card spot. So it just shows how hot the Mets have been, and getting hot at the exact right time in the season. There's still a lot of baseball left to be played, but the Mets are putting themselves in a very good position to hopefully clinch a spot in a 2024 postseason. And the postseason for the major leagues isn't for another 4 weeks or so, but the minor league season's starting to wrap up, so their postseasons are creeping up, and I don't know if anyone down in the Mets system is going to be playing playoff baseball, but if we want to know that, then we're going to have to turn the keys over to Mr. Corne to share that information with us.
Well, I don't know that. I think the Syracuse Mets probably have a good chance but I haven't really looked at the records, Andrew.
Well, I
So
was just trying to find a
thank
way
you.
to transition it to
Yeah, but thank you for putting me up for failure right from the start of this minor league minute. Good job by you, that. Um, well, I'm gonna try something new. I'm just gonna say the team and then the day. So I did that last week, I think. So maybe a little bit more. You will hear some names being duplicated during just minor league minutes. So there we go. St. Lucie on Sunday. St. Lucie lost 5-4 after being down 5-0 early. AJ Ewan went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a walk. Nick Rosselli went 2 for 3 with 2 walks. Johairo Cuevas had a good day going 2 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI. Unfortunately, Jorge De Leon struggled, which put St. Lucie behind early. Ethan Lantier, the Mets' 12th round pick this year, made his pro debut with a scoreless inning, striking out 2. Edgar Moreta was strong again with 3 scoreless innings, striking out 4. Tuesday, Wednesday, it was a game that was scheduled for Tuesday, but was uh, shortened due to rain and then finished on Wednesday. And Marco Vargas and Colin Houck went 2 for 4 in a 4-3 win. Houck drove in 2. 10th rounder Brennan Girton pitched just 1 inning before the rain on Tuesday, allowing 2 runs. Os Brewer, brother of Colton Brewer, MLB reliever, went 2 innings, scoreless innings in his organizational debut in the win. Thursday, Corey Collins has been tremendous early in his pro career. He went 1 for 1 with 3 walks and sports a nice 1093 OPS. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for St. Lucie as they lost a rain-shortened game. Joel Diaz allowed 2 runs, 0 for 4 with 6 strikeouts. The Cyclones, Brooklyn. Sunday, Brooklyn scored 6 runs in a 6-2 win. Nick Morabito had another multi-hit day going 2 for 3. Ronald Hernandez had a good day after struggling to open his Cyclones stint. He went 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI. Felipe De La Cruz went 3 scoreless, striking out 3. Mets 8th-rounder Ryan Lemmert had his pro debut with a scoreless inning, striking out 1. Leonel Ovales struck out 4 over 2 perfect. And Ryan Adams, aforementioned Ryan Adams, we got in the Justin Slater deal, struck out the side in his inning. Tuesday, Cyclones collected a shutout 6-0 win behind a strong outing from lefty Zach Thornton. He went 5 1/3 scoreless, allowing 4 hits, 1 walk with 6 strikeouts. He has a 2.92 ERA with Brooklyn. Christopher Suero got a lot of the offense going. 3 for 4 with a home run, double, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Callum Clark went 3 for 3 with two RBIs in the win. Wednesday, a pitching duel against the Blue Rocks ended in a 1-0 win. Mercado drove in the only run as Sal Garcia was strong in his Cyclones debut, going 5 scoreless with 7 strikeouts. We mentioned Ryan Adams again, and Eduardo Herrera threw 2 more scoreless frames. Thursday, Nick Marabito went 3 for 5, a homer away from the cycle, and Christopher Suero went 3 for 4 with an RBI. However, the Cyclones, after Austin Trouser went 3 innings, allowing 3 runs, 2 earned with 6 strikeouts, lost. Luis Moreno, not the Binghamton starter, allowed 5 runs in a 2/3 of an innings. Gregory Luis had another scoreless frame, striking out 3. The lefty had a 1.37 ERA this year between Brooklyn and St. Lucie. Binghamton, Sunday, Binghamton lost 4-2. Kevin Parada and Alex Ramirez went 2 for 4. And Ramirez also hit a double. Jordan Gerber was solid over 5 innings of 2-run ball, striking out 4. Monday, another 2-for-4 day for Alex Ramirez. This time he had 2 doubles and 2 runs scored. And Rowdy Jordan went 2 for 4 with a home run and 3 RBIs. Unfortunately, Jonathan Pintero, who struck out 8, allowed 4 runs over 3 and 2/3 innings. Jordani Ventura had his second outing since joining Binghamton with 2 1/3 scoreless, striking out 4, but the Rumble Ponies lost 6-5. Wednesday, doubleheader, game 1. The Rumble Ponies lost game 1 in the doubleheader. Jeremiah Jackson went yard for the 17th time this year in a 5-4 loss. Wednesday's game 2, the Rumble Ponies lost again, so not a good week. 6-4. Rowdy Jordan went 2 for 3 with a double, an RBI and 2 runs scored. Jalen Palmer hit his 11th of the year, driving in 2. Unfortunately, Luis Moreno, the Rumble Ponies starter, not the Cyclones reliever, struggled, allowing 5 runs over 4 innings. Yeah, funny, you have exactly the same name. One reliever in Brooklyn and one a starter in Binghamton. So good to mention. Mostly, if I talk about Binghamton, it's the Binghamton, and it's the starter. If I talk about Cyclones, it's the reliever. Thursday, Jonathan time. I watched his first Double-A start in his career. He faced the potent and red-hot offense, as we saw in the final scores, and he was dominant. He retired 18 out of 19 batters he faced with 9 strikeouts. The only runner that got on base was on a error from Jeremiah Jackson. 77 pitches for strikes for Tom. 77 pitches, 51 for strikes. Everything worked. Fastball worked, curve, which he threw 24% of the time. Cut a slider and split change, mixed it all well with at least a 10% usage, besides his 42% fastball usage. This is all via Isaac Rothman on Twitter. But I watched him and I watched him myself as well, and he was just fun to watch, in complete control. Didn't get the win, but to run the ponies, and did win on a Jalen Palmer walk-off blast. So great outing for Jonathan, good debut. I'm excited about Jonathan, so I try to get you to watch one of his outing at some point. But so far it hasn't worked out yet. Probably when you watch, he doesn't have a good outing. So Syracuse Sunday, Syracuse won nothing behind a strong start from Brandon Sproat. Sproat went 5 1/3 scoreless innings, allowing just 2 hits and 2 walks with 6 strikeouts. A much needed good outing in AAA for Sprout. And Max Quannick struck out 3 over 1 2/3 innings. Eric Orsi struck out the side in his inning, and Matt Gage got the save. Drew Gilbert homered for the only run, his fifth since August 21st. Tuesday, Syracuse collected just 3 hits and a 4-1 loss. Acuna and Ritter both doubled as Acuna scored a run and Ritter drove him in. Paul Blackburn was solid, over 6 2/3 innings of run one ball in his rehab outing. He allowed 4 hits and 1 walk with 4 strikeouts, so he will probably be ready for the next turn. Wednesday, Titwell dropped to 0-8, another bad outing. He allowed 7 runs over just 1 2/3 inning as his AAA struggles continue. Syracuse tried their best to come back, but came up just short in a 10-8 loss. Drew Gilbert went deep again, and Mark Brousseau hit his 15th. Logan Porter went 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a loss. And finally, Thursday, another struggle for Syracuse met outing. Starting pitcher Mike Vessel struggled as he allowed 7 runs in 3 1/3 innings as the Cyclones rotation just keeps struggling this year. I think Vessel, Titwell, even Sproat, and Hamill all have struggled for Syracuse, unfortunately. Fujinami kept his good showing going as he allowed just 2 runs over his last 13 2/3 innings. Both runs allowed in one outing. Over his last 9 2/3 innings, he has allowed just 1 hit, 2 walks while striking out 14. Schwartz, Cortez, and Ritter homered in the loss.
There you go. All caught up to date on the minor leagues in the Mets system. Obviously, Jonah Tong stole the headlines last night, like you said, and don't be making it sound like I'm not buying the Jonah Tong hype. I'm obviously on the Jonah. We've been
No,
talking about Jonah Tong for probably since our first episode.
I'm not saying that. You said yesterday that you haven't watched him yet.
Nah,
So
I haven't
uh,
watched Jonah Tong yet.
no, so that's the only thing. I know the numbers don't lie, and I'm pretty excited. So you probably get excited about that. But yeah, you
I
just
always get excited about good pitching in the system.
yes.
We're a pitching podcast.
So we're a pitching podcast. We like pitchers.
Yes, we like 2-1
We
games,
like them.
not 9-8 games.
No, I don't like the Syracuse Mets this year.
Wow, what a hater.
I like their arms that they're having, but they're just not having a good year.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are young and they need to develop, and maybe it's a good learning curve that it's not coming easy every time when you hit the mound. And there's obviously some major league kind of like major league talent in AAA,
Hmm.
which are tough to face. So not necessarily a bad thing for the future, but obviously you want to see better.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Especially after all the hype from a guy like Vassell last year and Dom Hamill, what he did in Binghamton last year, and Tidwell, what he did the last year with Brooklyn and Binghamton, and Binghamton at the beginning of this year. So yeah, you like to see those guys, but as they rise up the rankings or the levels to keep that production. But there's also a learning curve to be had, especially when you get to AAA with some guys who are, um, who have either lots of major league experience or they've had a nice handful of games in the major league. So it's a different animal. It's a different animal, no doubt. Well, I think we've toyed with people long enough because I think people are just listening to us because they want to know who's getting free tickets for the New York Mets and the Washington Nationals on Tuesday, September 17th at Citi Field. Could be a very big game. Could be a very big game for the New York Mets' sake. And who is the lucky recipient of the three tickets for this game? It is Brandy Rip. I believe I said the last name correct. So Brandy Rip is the winner of the three tickets for the Mets and Nationals Tuesday, September 17th at Citi Field. So congratulations, Brandy. We will get in contact with you, so be on the lookout for that. The next drawing is going to be on September 12th. That is for two tickets to the Mets Phillies game on September 19th. That's a Thursday. So that could be an even more important game for the New York Mets. So we're
Definitely.
giving out some high quality tickets for some high quality baseball.
We are in a September run, and Andrew, I should say, it's not me, it's Andrew. Giving up free tickets is pretty amazing. So do what is asked. Help us a little bit out too, because we are still a starting podcast. So win-win. Hopefully, getting us some more listeners and you a nice baseball game. So win-win, I would say.
That's right. We're if you want to technically look at it from the giving tickets away perspective, we're 1-0 because we gave away two tickets for that Sox Mets Red Sox game on Labor Day, and the Mets played a very good game on that day. So if you get tickets from us, maybe it's more likely the Mets are going to win. Who knows? It's a it's a
Well,
hypothesis. It's a
if we
hypothesis.
if we go 2-0, I would say yes. 1-0 is just too small sample size, and
Well, that's why I say it's a hypothesis. We have to test the
yeah,
theory. I do
yeah,
science. I do science.
I don't know what that means, but
Uh,
I
wow.
missed on that.
Wow. Well, there's some more important things to be talking about right now than science, and that's a big three-game weekend series with the Cincinnati Reds in New York, and it's going to be a very interesting. Well, I guess we don't really know who's pitching. Well, I mean, we'll know later today who's pitching for the Reds in the rest of the series. We only have the probables for game one on the Mets website. So if you want to know who's pitching Saturday or Sunday, tell the New York Mets website people to get on the case and figure it out. Tonight it starts off at 7:10 with Sean Manaea going for the Mets on regular rest. He's going up against Fernando Cruz, who is a reliever who is starting. He's pitched his last two outings have been starts, but he's only pitched a combined 5 innings. So it's probably more of an opener case than anything with Fernando Cruz. Saturday, it is TBD for the Cincinnati Reds, like I said, and it is Jose Quintana going for the New York Mets. And then the Sunday finale, it is TBD for the Cincinnati Reds, but Luis Severino for the New York Mets. So if the New York Mets are to continue their winning ways. If they sweep the Reds, that's 10 in a row. I'm just saying if they do that, tall
It's
task off
September
it.
in the first
Tall
one.
task. It's a tall task,
It's a blood task. I
but
think expecting a sweep is always maybe a
a
little
little
bit too much.
ridiculous.
Yeah, expecting a sweep is a little bit too much, but if you win the series, you're still having a great run. So win series, but also try to win as much as possible, obviously.
That's right.
So the Reds aren't necessarily in the best stretches of the year. We had the Reds a little bit higher before this year than
Yeah, we did.
they eventually turn out to be. That's why you play the games. So it's a team that we could/should handle.
Yep. I mean, if you remember correctly, the Mets took 2 of 3 from the Reds earlier in the year. That's when the Mets kind of got in their April hot stretch. But if the Mets want to continue their September hot stretch against the Cincinnati Reds, they're going to need some guys to be on their A game. Pick up, they could bring it to another level, as they say. So, if who is going to do that, we're going to put some names to the claim in our player of the series predictions. Well, we are a pitching podcast, as we have mentioned already. I got the pitcher last time, so you get the pitcher this time, and I get the hitter, which will be a little bit more difficult since I don't really know who's pitching for the Reds. So, but anyway, it gives me a little time to figure it out since you're going first.
Yes, gives you some time to figure out. I knew I had the pitcher, and for once I tried to to prepare a little bit. But I just I watched how Kitana and Severino because I didn't want to go with Shalmanaya. So because that's maybe a little bit too obvious. So I looked at the numbers against for Quintana and Severino to look if there's something truly positive. Unfortunately, um, that didn't necessarily happen. So I'm going with the obvious. I'm going with this year's ace, I would say, is Shamanaya. Um, he's been on such a roll. I don't expect Shamanaya to have a bad outing. I know he had that one. I can't remember against who it was, but he had that one bad outing in this stretch. But overall, it's been so good. Home ballpark, fans behind him. Um, he's been tremendous, showing so much confidence. So unfortunately, I have to go with the obvious pick this time, Shamanai.
Well, I guess I can't blame you there, going with an obvious candidate. I'm going to go with so you talk about people or the fan base trying, getting behind people, and there's someone who's been scuffling a lot lately, and I think the fan base is maybe not as much behind right now as we would like to see him. But this player did go 2 for 6 against the Red Sox, and he picked up an RBI. Also, that the one hit he got in the Wednesday game was part of that big eighth inning that really put the game away. And that's Mr. Francisco Alvarez. And I'm going to be Mr. Positive here. I think Alvarez is going to have a nice series against the Reds. I think he's going to hit one out. I think he's going to launch one into the second deck in left field. So I'm going to go with Francisco Alvarez to maybe show signs of turning things around and leading the charge here for the New York Mets offensively.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love that pick. We always try. I know I didn't do it necessarily this time. I tried, but we always try to to have some guys who are maybe not in their best stretches that we pick. Alvarez has been looking better. Have to add that, and he made a nice back pick too on a base runner. I don't know who the base runner was again. I think it was Valdez who got cut, or no, it was Sogard. Ah, who cares? He had that one one nice play in the field too. So he had a good series. So good pick.
Well, I always, especially pitching wise of late, when I usually my players of the series predictions are spot on. Been very good.
Yeah, and you probably pick the same one next week because it's his turn again when you. Maybe we should switch around that a little bit so you can't pick David Peterson every time.
Well, maybe I'm going to pick Paul Blackburn when he gets activated probably next week against the Blue Jays. Who knows? You can't look into the crystal ball and automatically say I'm going to pick David Pearson. If you're a better, the odds are probably in favor of David
Yeah,
Peterson, but sometimes
let's talk about that. By the way, you as a better.
I was one Jesse Winker hit away from winning $35 on a $5 bet because it's legal in Vermont.
That's legal here too. But
Yeah, but it's not legal in all states. And
no,
so I'm just saying.
that's the weird thing in America, the different states and all kind of shit. You have to just do one thing for the whole country. That's but all right. That's political. We don't get too much political stuff going here.
Yeah, that's probably
That's
not the best
reasonable.
idea. Oh, I remember. Okay, so I was gonna. We're trying to wrap things up here. We're already 55 minutes of this damn thing. So, but I remember that I teased you a little bit about something. I was
Oh
like, I
yeah,
got
you
something
did.
about Francisco
I
Lindor that I was
I
gonna share on the
totally forgot.
podcast, whatever, because I was there at the game Monday night, and he's getting all the MVP chance, and all well deserved, very much so, well deserved chance and whatnot. But if you were one of these people at the end of 2021 that was a Francisco Lindor hater, and now you're at the ballpark or you're at home or whatever, chanting MVP, advocating for him, you have no credibility to me whatsoever. Like, you're a fraud.
That's was the big surprise you're gonna give on the podcast.
Well, I thought you might have some opinions on that. About these people. I mean, well, just think about how far Lindor has come since 2021, and we remember all the backlash about the Lindor contract and people saying he's not going to live up to the contract and he can't handle New York and all that stuff. And now we're talking about him as a MVP candidate and maybe the deserving MVP candidate in some people's minds. And some of these
Yeah,
people, I guarantee you, some of those people at the ballpark Monday night were talking trash about Francisco Lindor in 2021 and probably at the beginning of this year too, when he was 1 for 31 and stuff like that. So if you were that person and you know who you are, if you are listening, you have no credibility whatsoever.
good job, Andrew. So for the 10 listeners we have, you lost maybe three now. So good job by you. All our hard
We're still
work,
keeping 70% of them with those numbers. So
all working hard, doing minor league minutes for shit because you. No, you're right. I it's luckily I just don't listen to that and kept Francisco Lindor on my fantasy team all year
that's right.
because I know that Francisco Lindor tends to have a little bit of an iffy start, and it was a really iffy start. Not gonna lie, but Francisco Lindor is a good player. He was a good player last year. He was, yeah, he was a good player last year. I think 2022 he was a very good player, and this year he's a great player.
Yep. Oh,
And on a prime position with still the defense he plays and still the ability to stay on the field for every day, it's a heck of a score from the Mets, I would say, signing Lindor to the 10-year deal. And we don't know how it is in 6 to 7 years, but you never know. But I think the odds that Lindor is going to be a solid player for most of his contract, playing a lot of baseball, is way better for a guy like Francisco Lindor than name somebody else who also gets a big contract. Well, we have
like when Eric Hosmer got that 8 year deal from the
yeah,
Padres or
exactly. Yeah,
Dansby Swanson 6 year deal with the Cubs. I mean, that's oh,
he
okay.
still plays a lot.
No, he
Lindor's
plays a
better,
lot,
I
but
think.
he's making
So
like what the Cubs are paying him. No,
yeah,
they're expecting from him. It's not matching up. What the Mets are paying Francisco Lindor, it's pretty well matching up, and you could argue maybe the Mets are got a little bit of
I
a
mean,
steal.
when you get Lindor, you know it's for probably the first 60% of the contract for the money you give him to have him on your team. We are aware that probably the last 40 won't be the same Francisco Lindor as the first 6 years in his extension, I would say. But that's an educated bet that you take for a franchise player and a leader in a prime position. I think he's a perfect fit for the Mets too, for a team like the Mets, for a community like the Mets. Um, so this deal is definitely turning out a pretty good deal. Yes.
I said Dansby Swanson. Probably the better example would probably be Javi Baez.
Yeah. Yes.
That would probably be the better one.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
had way more flaws than Francisco Lindor, which you know that if he um, loses some ability or bat speed or whatever, or if he goes back to being that free swinger he was, it, that it wasn't going to be a good long term deal.
Yeah. So, well,
And
that
unfortunately for the Tigers, that happens.
yeah, of course. Well, that was just the thing I wanted to get off my chest, because I think there are some people that are now loving Francisco Lindor when they were just absolutely bashing him and saying he was not worth anything and all that stuff. So those people, I'm just saying those people they don't have any credibility to me. So that's all I wanted to
Yeah,
say.
still, but they're still Mets fans, Andrew. And we
I
still need
know.
them at the ballpark, and we still need them to cheer on the team. And yeah, we all know that there are some fans who are a bit short memorized, I would say.
As long as you're not like that big fat Mets fan, I guess it's okay. You know who I'm talking about. I'll leave it at that. So,
Yes.
and with that being said, I think we're going to wrap things up. I think we'll wrap it up here, and we'll get this rocking and rolling out to distribute to the public. So, Mr. Hogeveen, we thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy this weekend series with the Reds, and we will talk to you very soon.
Talk later, buddy.
All right, sounds good. We are the Queens Connection, a New York Mets podcast. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search the Queens Connection. We'll pop right up. We'll have our ticket giveaway post coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. And also like and subscribe wherever you listen on Spotify or YouTube. We thank you for listening. And just like Mr. Hoagbean, we hope you enjoy the 3-game weekend series with the Cincinnati Reds.